If I were a character in a novel, I'm trying to think of myself in terms of symbolism, okay? Especially the Moses symbolism of the Moses story, okay? Okay, so it just occurred to me that since I was of Hebrew descent, raised in a Christian family, I am like Moses. Moses was Hebrew, raised among the Egyptians. And then he discovered later that he was of Hebrew descent. That's exactly what happened to me. I was of Hebrew descent, raised among Christians. Not Hebrews. I mean, not Egyptians, but Christians. Just like Moses, I was in among a people that were not my people. And then when I got older, I realized I was of Hebrew descent. So there's a very strong association between me and Moses. Now, as I was sitting here watching the movie The Ten Commandments, another association suddenly dawned on me. Okay? I learned that my wife's in-laws are direct blood relations to who? The dictator of North Korea. So that dictator in my story, in terms of Northrop Frye's term displacement, that dictator would be Pharaoh. Okay? And by association, linking my wife to her sister and the sister's husband as a blood descendant of the dictator of North Korea, that makes my wife like the daughter of Pharaoh. She's displaced, of course, but the symbolism is still there. So I wander through life, and I'm found as if by this daughter of Pharaoh, the dictator of North Korea. Now, my wife, her family is from North Korea. They are not from South Korea. Her father came down from North Korea at the time of the Korean War to escape the communists because he was a wealthy landowner. Okay, so I have this troubled life where people are really trying to kill me. My own father tried to murder me. Okay, and then I'm as if saved by this daughter of the Pharaoh. We're talking displaced associations here. So, the children of the Hebrews were going to be all killed by the Pharaoh, right? And, well, my father, he tried to murder me more than once. So there are all those associations between me and Moses. They're present in my story. Maybe I'll think of more. Footnote. I've talked about my life as being encapsulated, if you will, within the story Night of the Hunter. And in that story, I am like the character John, the little boy who's trying to escape this madman serial murderer who is pretending to be a preacher the way my madman father was pretending to be this wonderful medical doctor. Okay? And that madman father of mine was raping me while I was asleep while growing up, along with all the other horrendous psychological abuse he subjected me to. I would say it was life-threatening, and I'm amazed I lived through it. I did survive that murder attempt in 1982, and my God, I'm saying I was radiation poisoned, okay? And that was the feeling I had, the agony I was in for just about 2 entire years, a little short of 2 entire years. My every waking moment of consciousness was a scream of agony inside me that I could not communicate to others, and no one believed a word I was saying when I was saying, I'm in pain. I mean, they don't. I even had people in the behavioral sciences telling me, you are not in pain. You're having side effects to the medicine. Now, go in there and talk to somebody in the day room, okay? Okay. You imagine the feeling you might have under radiation poisoning. You're in that much agony and people are talking to you that way. Okay? Okay, I'm entering emotional blackout and forgetting what I wanted to say here. I wanted to say here that in that story, The Night of the Hunter, I'm like the character John, who's trying to escape this madman who murdered his mother as well as other women to get their money and then move on after he marries them. He marries them for their money, murders them, and moves on. He's a serial murderer. And John and his sister Pearl, I figured symbolically that's me and my wife. My wife is Pearl, I'm John. So in that story, John, he does associate himself with Moses. Okay? When this lady who saves him and his sister, Miss Cooper, she reads him some of the story of Moses, and it looks to him very much like his own story because he was in a skiff escaping down a river from this madman with his sister, and he gets washed up ashore and found by this wonderful woman named Miss Cooper, like Moses, who is in a basket, an ark, whatever, and gets washed ashore, so to speak, and is found by the daughter of Pharaoh. So when John hears the story of Moses, he identifies with that story. And that's an important part of Night of the Hunter. That Moses' story is important to John. Well, that's as far as I can go with that for now. Footnote. The madman man of the year, who was supposed to have been my father, I don't believe he was my biological father, and I'm going to get proof that he wasn't. I have his teeth. I don't think he was the son of my father either. I may be able to prove that as well, I'm not sure. But I don't think he was the son of that father. I think he was the son of another man, and, well, that's another story. Now, this madman medical doctor, supposed to have been father of mine, okay? He had a man working for him, an African-American man, whose name was Moses. Now, the man of the year was like Pharaoh. He was boss, right? He was Pharaoh, associatively, and this guy working for him, well, he was like me, an underling to the Pharaoh, okay? So when I went as a 12-year-old to work with the man of the year, supposedly to prepare me to become a medical doctor, but that was not the idea. His plan was to make me look like a bad son to others. He didn't bring other sons to work with him the way he did me. Why not? And these two sons later tried to become doctors. They didn't get into medical school, but he didn't bring them to work. He brought me. And when he brought me, he was there scolding me horrifically. I was trying with all my might to do a great job there under the pretense he had for bringing me there. But after thinking over this horrific experience, during which time he was yelling at me and embarrassing me so badly that I said to myself while being scolded at one time, I said, I will never, inside myself, I said, I will never become a doctor, never, because of what this man is doing to me here. I will never become one. Because he wanted me to become one, apparently. And I lived true to that, okay? Now, the job that this man named Moses did was what? Develop X-ray films, because at that time, those films were films. I have some of them here. Let me put this on pause. Here's an old-fashioned X-ray. This one happens to be of me. Okay, they were like this, and they snapped into a viewing box, which is like essentially a light like that, a flat box that lit up, and you would read the X-ray from the light that shined through it. Now, to develop these X-rays, okay, they were in like these silver, were they lead-lined cases that were loaded into the X-ray machines, and then the X-rays were taken, and then these X-rays were fed into this. Well, wait a minute. They were. I did this job with Moses in the dark room there. That was one of the things I did. And Moses and I were in that dark room. So there I am being associated with Moses. I'm in there with Moses, working with Moses, and Moses teaching me how to develop these X-ray films. There's the association. Me and Moses, okay? I could tell in detail how the films were developed. They were put in one solution and then into another solution like that. And then finally, after several baths in these solutions, the X-rays were then fed into this, I don't know what it was, a machine that rolled them in. And then when they came out, on the other side, they dropped out of the machine there, and the doctors would grab them and snap them up into the white light boxes in there and read them, or they'd take them to their offices. So I just wanted to say that there's another association of me with Moses. It's an important one. Footnote. My wife converted to Catholicism because I was a Catholic, but I was no Catholic. I was born into a Catholic family, but as I said in message after message after message after message, I never believed in Jesus Christ privately inside myself. These are things I didn't go out telling people, right? I would have been thought crazy to do that, so I never did that. And I didn't really even notice myself. It's just, as the years passed and I was studying Judaism just full-time, from the age of young 20s on, I was deeply involved in studying Judaism, going to Jewish services and the rest of it, and then converting to Judaism finally. I noticed when I was doing that I had never prayed to Jesus ever, nor had I ever invoked the name of Jesus, like, Jesus this or that. Jesus wouldn't want you to do, no, never. Ask my son if I ever did that. I didn't. He'll tell you I never did that, and I never prayed to Jesus And as I've said in many of these recordings, I never asked God for I believed in God. I used the word God, never Jesus. Never Jesus. And I never asked God for anything. I never said like, God, please help me get a good grade on the exam, or God, please help me meet a girl. No. I asked God for nothing, ever. Until I converted to Judaism and started to call the Lord by his name, and then I started to ask God for things, and I gotta say, God has answered. Okay? Adonai, I call him Adonai, and Adonai has answered prayers of mine. Now, I want to say that my wife, when she got together with me, she wanted to convert to Catholicism, to be a Catholic like me, even though I was no Catholic, and I didn't argue with her. You want to be a Catholic? Okay, sir. It was easy. It didn't take much, and there wasn't much to it, and she converted to Catholicism, and when she did, she needed to take a name for herself as a Catholic. So she was asking me, what name should I take? And here's the name I suggested to her, and that she accepted. Zipporah, the name of Moses' wife. I said, take that name. And she did. Now, years passed, and we decided we wanted to change our names. My wife had never liked her Korean name. So, in 2015, we decided to legally change our names. We had lots of reasons for wanting to do that, and as I said, my wife never liked her Korean name, so once again she's asking me for names, and I said, how about Sephora? The Italian version of the name is Zipporah. And she said, that sounds good. And she changed her name to Sephora. Legally. Footnote. Lest anyone who sees this video think I have some grandiose idea of myself as Moses. Let me say that after much thought, I've decided that what my heroic task in life might be, and I'm not sure, from the Lord, Adonai, if I have a heroic task, as a kind of Moses, my task is to bring my family back to the Lord. After 500 years, that it's been in captivity, if you will, to the Christians that forced my ancestors into Christianity 500 years ago. My task is to bring my family back to the Lord. And it looks like to do that, I'm going to need to have 2 wives the way Moses did, and to escape a kind of slavery I've been in here in the United States. So the United States is Egypt in this analogy. I'm Moses, and my people are my family. Me, my wife, our son, and the person I'm calling Beshuasi. Us 4. Okay, there's my people that I need to lead out of Egypt, the United States, to a promised land.